So, how's life in hell been for you? I joke, but it really isn't a joke anymore. It never was. I can't even call the politics here unbelievable anymore. I hate it, but political dynasties, corruption scandals, they're pretty much just commonplace here at this point. Between those and the fact that the country just sits on, excuse me, how many different fault lines? The country is also right next to the Pacific, so you already know that the storms just never stop coming for us. Yeah, the Philippines is just the 10th layer of hell. Everyone knows this. It's always been this way. The corrupt politicians just carry over the punishments from like greed, violence, treachery, or I guess wherever else in hell they come from. And for as much as they stole from us, they could have at least left the flood control projects alone. It's not like climate change is making life any easier for us. With that being said, this video is actually just a project I have for Class 1. We had to go to our university's main library to pick out an article from a newspaper that was published in our date of birth, and then we had to talk about it. And I did find an article involving the DPWH, but it was mostly just for that year's REA conference. They had discussions on tech research, but nothing really involving flood control. So instead, I'd like to talk about a different article from that newspaper, which talks about a topic that I think should be discussed more frequently, especially in the Philippines. Global warming. It's November 9, 2006, and this is an article from the Paris AFP, only republished in Philippine Star. The US and China were exempted from the targeted emission cuts on the UN's Kyoto Protocol. For years up until this point, and actually even to this day, certain interest groups have been denying, bickering, and nitpicking details about climate change, causing the weakening and delay of climate change policies to the point that mad or dangerous responses towards climate change were being reconsidered. First of which was Roger Angel's solar shield, which does exactly what you think it does. He estimated a cost of $3 trillion, which gets criticized, of course, but he argues that it's a small price to pay considering that, it's global warming. The second mad example was Paul Crutzen's suggestion of recreating the global cooling that occurred during the 1991 Mount Pinatubo eruption by spreading sulfur dioxide across the atmosphere. Though, thankfully, Edward Bard pointed out that eruption is actually poorly understood, and recreating it would only just make dangerous regional coolings and warmings instead of a global cooling. And thirdly, Bard also pointed out that to scientists that think that they could increase phytoplankton population to suck up the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere and store it in the seafloor, we don't actually know if the CO2 would actually stay down there. There could be some way that the CO2 leaks back into the atmosphere or into the ocean, making the oceans acidic and oxygen-starved. Then nitrate-loving bacteria would start to grow in population. Then they would release nitrous oxide into the atmosphere, an even worse, powerful greenhouse gas. Then the article ends with a note that the future of the Kyoto Protocol is in discussion in the UN Climate Change Conference that year in Nairobi, Kenya, which was from November 6 to 17. Now, for a while, I've wondered why I haven't been hearing much about this topic, given how you could physically feel this place getting hotter and hotter every year, not to mention the rise of cases of heat strokes, droughts, rising frequency and intensity of typhoons, and flooding-related incidents. It's not like Filipinos aren't aware of climate change. It's not like climate denial is much of a problem here as it is in other countries. Filipinos are aware of it. The HHA from Feb to March 2024 found that 85% of Filipino respondents believe that climate change is real, but 2/3 of them also have taken no measures to adapt against it. But interestingly, less than half of us actually expect to be significantly impacted by climate change in the next 5 years. But then you consider how only 24% of the respondents said that they felt very or extremely informed about the effects of climate change. And things start to make sense, since also in the 2022 Climate Reality Barometer, only 10.7% of Filipino respondents said that climate change was the most urgent issue here. To me, this is interesting, because now we see a country of great class inequality are severely affected by climate change, are aware of climate change, but consider other issues like poverty and corruption to be more immediately pressing. Now, people would be more concerned about issues that directly impact their lives, and that's fair. But I wonder why I rarely hear the claim that Filipinos are victims of the many disasters made worse by climate change, a problem which came about due to the rapid industrialization of first world countries barely concerned with the environmental disasters that could cause harm to both their people and everyone else. Will they actually do something concrete about it, or will they just continue to pretend that it's a non-issue while the rest of us burn in hell even hotter every year? Don't know. Something interesting to think about, I guess.